Welcome to the Helping Conversation, an exploration and celebration of the practice, art, and science of facilitating trusting, safe, inclusive, and effective helping conversations with others. Recorded at RockVox Recording and Production Studios, Rochester, New York. Mouth off at RockVox, rockvox.com. Having enjoyed an almost 40-year career facilitating his own authentic brand of the helping conversation, your host, Executive and Recovery Coach, Keith Greer.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you for taking the time to sit in with me today on another episode of the Helping Conversation podcast. There are way too many people to thank at this moment in time in terms of those that have truly stepped up in the face of our worldwide pandemic. And I don't want to minimize the need to thank every single one of them in a variety of walks of life. But today we have the opportunity to have a wonderful conversation with a representative of one of the groups of people that every single day I am not even quite sure, I cannot wrap my head around how they are still presently doing their jobs. And that is all of our very special people that work in the world of educating our children. It goes without saying, and this isn't a shot at public ed, but public ed was not created to function well during a worldwide pandemic. It just wasn't. It was created to have people in a room together in large numbers, medium-sized numbers, a real emphasis on that type of connection with each other. And so to be in a place where most of our schools are operating either full-time or at least part-time in the virtual world, and we are still asking our teachers and our other educational professionals to figure out how to make this happen, figure out how to help our children move forward academically and socially and emotionally during this time. It's an astronomical ask. And all of my colleagues that I am aware of that remain in public ed are doing, it's just a phenomenal job in making sure that our children get what they need in spite of all that's going on in the world. So I would ask you to join me in welcoming in to the studio with us today, Mary Lally. Good afternoon, Mary.
Good afternoon.
So let me fill y'all in a little bit on who Mary is. She has been a special ed teacher, special educator for the past 24 years. And throughout that time, she has always tried to add a dash of humor and compassion wherever she is. She has taught students from preschool to high school and has discovered one common thread in every classroom she has ever entered. It is all about building relationships with students, parents, colleagues, and the community. This has been her mission and purpose. Sense of belonging, empathy, understanding, and rapport are the hallmark qualities of fostering the growth of relationships. In February 2019, when Mary was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, she discovered that with faith, gratitude, and love, the obstacles in life may just prove to be the most meaningful opportunities to grow. So again, Mary, thank you so much for making the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So I would just like to get this started by asking you to just kind of give a general overview of what it has been like for you and your colleagues over the last X number of months teaching in the middle of a pandemic.
Well, it has been a whirlwind and a half. I can't even describe it as anything other than that. Our last day of school in person was Friday the 13th. Irony there.
Yeah, I guess so.
Everything we could, knew that we were going to be full remote, didn't really get a chance to say goodbye to our kids, we kind of set them up, letting them know that there would be some time that we would be meeting online with them and helping them to learn online. But everything that we had traditionally done with paper and books and pencils all needed to be electronically done, which is a huge feat.
Yeah.
So when that transitioned over into the electronic world, then came the really tricky part. We were very fortunate in my school district to have a one-to-one Chromebook relationship. So everybody already had a Chromebook, which was just great timing. Last year was the year they rolled it out. So everybody had a Chromebook. everybody had some training in Google Classroom, but not everybody was fully implemented. So it was a real challenge to try to engage our kids, because from their perspective, and I've got to appreciate their perspective, school was being taken away from them.
Right.
The school where they could show up every day, be fed, be heard, be listened to, be just kind of settle into that routine where they could truly feel comfortable, was disrupted totally. And that's not to say that I don't work with some great families. I do, but there's a beautiful part about coming into school and being with your friends and being in their presence. So I will say my school did a remarkable job of helping us to try to figure some things out, so that when we return this September, we were ready to roll. And my guys are in school 4 days a week, or they're remote. They've got an option. Everybody's fully remote Wednesdays. But again, there's just something about being in the actual presence of your kids, and you can't get a flavor for that with everybody when there's that electronic between you. So we really try to do our best. And by and large, everybody is working overtime.
Right.
To try to make things as creative and engaging as possible. And it's kind of cool to experiment and figure those things out.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we go back to the start, what drew you, long before we ever even had to think about a worldwide pandemic, what drew you to education in the first place?
I have always been surrounded by helpers in my life. Think about it. My dad was a Cub Scout leader. My mom was the Brownie leader. My aunt was hugely into the Cub Scouts. And I was just surrounded by all these helpers. And I'm the first teacher in my family, so it's not like I came from a long line of teachers. I think that's unusual. But I would set up classroom in my bedroom and teach kids, and it was just fantastic. So I always knew how much I loved school. I loved being in school. I loved the learning. I loved the smell of books. I love to just be there. And I knew that somewhere deep inside of me, I was always thinking about other people. Sometimes at the expense of myself.
Yeah.
But always trying to put other people in a position where I could understand and just be there in their presence and be there for them.
Yeah. So early on, you said as a child, you were the teacher in the classroom with your dolls.
Absolutely. Yeah. Taking attendance, doing lessons, the whole gamut. I was pretty fantastic at what I did. So those dolls learned a lot from me. and
you mentioned your mom and your dad and your aunt. Other along the way, or even after maybe when you first started in the education field, other people who have been role models and inspirations to you?
Oh my goodness. Teachers growing up, I had a special place in my heart for every teacher I ever had, even the scary ones, because there were a few scary ones along the way, but that was a little bit of respect for them because I was scared to death. But every teacher I ever had showed me something a little different about how I could help people. And then once I became a teacher, forget about it. I think I might have actually been a disaster, a little bit of a disaster. And I decided very early on in my career to not be scared about asking for help and reaching out and finding mentors along the way who could help me to figure out why kids behave the way that they did, what drives kids to succeed, what drives kids to be their best. How do you find that nugget of awesome in every kid every day, even if they're giving you a little bit of a run for your money?
Right.
So along the way, I've hooked up with some great mentors, and then I've always worked with TAs and aides who brought to the table a certain flair of their own personal experiences. And that's the beautiful part about special education is the teamwork.
Right.
Every professional, every paraprofessional, everybody I've worked with has shown me things that were really fantastic to do, or maybe things I would want to steer clear of. Everybody has their own style, but it helped me pretty early on to forge my career around the idea that there were brilliant people around me and tap into that brilliance because it's there.
They know, right.
People have been very generous in sharing that information with me.
Yeah. So you said something a moment ago I wanted to jump on. You and I talked about this when we spoke the other week getting ready for the podcast today about all of the people who you couldn't pay them enough money to ever either be a teacher or teach high school kids. And so you mentioned a moment ago about what motivates kids. What motivates, in this case, maybe what motivates kids to learn, because we know by high school that kids can present in some pretty funky ways, and in some ways that, at least on the surface, can look like they don't care or they're not interested. So in general, I realize this is a really big question, but from your experience working with teens, because this seems to be probably where the first place we need to go to even start thinking about how to connect with them, what motivates them?
Right down to the bare bone basics. What motivates them? Human connection. Human connection, relationships, making sure their physical needs are met. If they're hungry, feed them. If they're tired, maybe say, you know what, maybe take a 5-minute snooze there. Get yourself together. We'll regroup. What motivates them to do their best? No kid wants to fail. No kid wants to come to school and say, I'm going to be a big jerk to my teacher today because blah, blah, blah. There's always a reason. There's always a story behind the motivation. And figuring that out is where that kind of separates the men from the boys. Trying to figure that out. And I've got these little connections with kids. One guy comes in every morning and says, right side, wrong side. Side. I get to be here at school and see you. What about you? Right side, wrong side. And he feels a sense of duty to kind of tell me, well, you know what? Didn't sleep well last night. Kept waking up, but I'm here. I'm tired, but I'm here. Like, all right, man, let's just rock your day.
So the right side, wrong side is like which side of the bed you woke up on?
Yeah, right side of the bed, wrong side of the bed.
That's awesome.
But it's all these little quirky things. And if you can build a little something with everybody, that's where you get kids to learn, because nobody's going to learn a thing if they're not comfortable and feeling safe.
Right. So I love hearing that because, again, as somebody who spent 30 years in public ed and celebrates all that it does wonderfully, I'm also more than willing to be a critic about some of the things that maybe it doesn't do so wonderfully. And sometimes I found myself with this population of kid that you work with and I worked with, that it can be easy for the system, even those within the education system, to look at the kids who aren't doing well and label them some combination of, not interested, unmotivated, right? Things like that. And you're telling me that if you pull the covers on those poor, pretty simplistic explanations, that underneath that you have a kid who is in many cases dying to be successful, just hasn't figured out how.
Absolutely. And when I think about it, it would be like asking me to do 1,000 sit-ups a day.
Right.
I avoid abdominal workout like the plague. But for my guys who struggle with reading and writing and putting concepts together and figuring it all out, it's pretty scary to put yourself out there.
Right.
And show a teacher what maybe you can't do. I would rather kind of be a jerk, act like a jerk, than let you know that things are really hard for me. And it's scary to put yourself out there. So we work really hard to foster a community where everybody in the room knows that everybody's working on something.
Right.
The adults, the kids, everybody's working on something. And that feeling of safety and security oftentimes will kind of give you a little bit of an edge in figuring out what makes kids tick, because everybody's got a little something they're motivated to do or interested in.
Right.
Whether it's a sport, whether it's a hobby. I've learned more about video games and dirt bikes and NASCAR and all kinds of things, because you can make that little connection. You can build that into just about any concept.
Right. I would imagine that all of our listeners, like me at this moment, are thinking about that teacher or teachers that really connected with us. And those were the human beings who had the skill to see us and interact with us as more than just a student, more than just reading, writing, and arithmetic, really interested in us, getting to know us. And boy, I'm thinking of a very specific person, Mrs. Berg, right? And I did horribly in her class academically. But to this day, she stands out as the best teacher I ever had because I felt like she saw me.
And that's important. And those genuine relationships are so critical. They're the hallmark. And at the end of the day, if I've made a connection with someone, they may not remember when the French Revolution was. I mean, most people don't. But what they'll remember is, you know what? Lally acted this whole thing out today, and she showed us something where people were treated unfairly. And we get that because sometimes our parents aren't fair. And if you can make that connection, if you can be genuine, if you can have a little fun with yourself, let down your guard a little bit and they might figure out that I'm a little nutty in the classroom, but they'll figure out that I get it. I get them. This might not be high on their list of priorities, but I've got to teach it to you. So let's make the most of it.
Right.
I mean, make those connections and build the relationships, and they can see if you're faking it.
Oh my! Right.
You can't fake it with a kid.
You cannot fake it with a kid. Right.
They get it. I've seen people try to fake it. They're like, I just can't with this kid. And like, please no. They're like, I know you don't get me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of give you a run for your money even more.
Yeah. Their bullshit radar is off the charts.
Oh, it's fantastic. If you could channel that energy, wow. It's amazing. It's a superpower.
Yes, it is. It is. So as a special ed teacher, you, I assume you push into classes or you see kids within, you have your own classroom where kids come for that extra help, often as a part of their IEP, their individual education plan. So student shows up first day, and give us an idea of maybe just some of the ways you're going to start that interaction that focuses on that rapport building with that child when they walk in your room.
It's both a blessing and a curse to have done a little bit of recon and research on your kiddos before they start. Because sometimes the person who had them before may be like, oof.
Yeah, all negative.
Gonna give you a run for your money. And so I listen with a grain of salt, but I always listen to what people have to say, because kids come in with a whole bunch of luggage by the time they get to ninth grade. So I do a little bit of recon. I have some background info. I've got my whole toolkit of kids with autism really like a routine. They like structure. They like things to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And from there, I'm just ready to meet them where they are.
Right.
Miss Lally, you're welcome to high school, man. This is kind of funny that you're here. You're not really sure what to expect. You're not really sure what your place is yet, but we're all here together to just kind of give you whatever you need.
Yeah.
You may not even know what you need yet, but
right.
We're here. Just that warm, inviting atmosphere where, we really try to set the table as a team. I mean, I work with some fantastic people. Co-teacher I work with, my social worker. Kudos to the social workers of the world.
Thank you very much.
Speech and language therapist, TAs, everybody I work with, we really start off just with a warm invitation.
Right.
This is where we are. We're going to start work right away because we know you don't want to waste your time when you're here.
Yeah.
No, let's get it done. Let's go for it.
So in some of the maybe more traditional helping roles, social worker, counselor, we always talk about starting where your client is at, right? Not where you want to start it, but where your client's at. So very similar. Now, but I have to imagine as a teacher, that's a little bit more challenging. Like in my 30 years as a school social worker, I always used to say to people, I had it easy. It didn't matter to me what the crisis was that walked into my office. I had the luxury of helping that student or students just deal with the crisis, and I didn't have to worry about getting content in them. You have to worry about getting content into kids. So we can talk all we want to about start where the client is at or where the kid is at, but from day one of the school year, there's another agenda there.
There is. And I will say that I kind of have that luxury in my program to take a pause, to take a minute and say, all right, where are we? Do we have high anxiety about learning? Are we super interested? What are we interested in? What makes you tick? How can I help you learn? What strategies are going to help you? And I've got to bring out all my best stuff. And the content part, I think people get so hung up on content. Oh my God, I'm never going to get through all this curriculum. What am I going to do? They're going to fail. They're going to this. But the fact is, I know if I'm a kid and I've got learning difficulties and challenges, I'm probably not going to be able to learn a whole lot unless I'm feeling safe and secure.
Yeah.
And when you have time to build that relationship within the first few days of school and first few weeks of school, the learning is a lot easier. Right. The learning comes naturally. Not that I'm not working all these 28,000 strategies all day long, but if they're feeling safe, they're much better suited to learn.
Yeah. So that is absolute music to my ears, this conversation about how you create safety and trust with another human being. And again, so challenging with a 14-year-old who, just based on one, being 14, two, probably by the time as you have said, by the time they show up with you, school has not been the greatest of all places in terms of a place where they have felt competent over the years. So in addition to this kind of general, okay, we're going to get to know each other and build rapport, any other more specific ideas or strategies that you engage specifically around creating a sense of trust and safety with this child?
I am a huge fan of reflective listening. I'm a huge fan of active listening. I'm just taking it all in while they're talking to me or writing things down or any of that other stuff, or even just their behaviors in general or their body language. You can read so much by just kind of watching people, looking in what they do. So there's that. I'm a huge fan of using my sense of humor.
Yeah.
Sometimes horribly misunderstood because they're like, who's the weirdo over there? But if they know that there's a light side to me, there's something about that.
Right.
Or, oh my gosh, this lady's not going to make me write a 28-page essay the first day of high school because my older brother said that's what high school is. And it's just guys, I'm going to meet you where you are.
Right.
And I'm going to take you where you need to be.
And humor, I'm thinking, especially with this population, back to something you said a few moments ago about the need to be real, not fake. And I always use the word authentic. I would imagine with this population, if your humor does not feel authentic, you're done.
Oh, yeah. Listen, cash in your chips. You're done. You're done. And it can't be mean-spirited humor. It can't be crazy sarcasm because a lot of people don't really get sarcasm. But what you can do is just make it light. I teach English. Make your characters come to life. Bring a funny story in. I like to talk about my dog Bacon. We're very well behaved right now. He's got a bone. But he's oftentimes a little bit on the naughty side. And I bring him into just about everything we talk about. So that personal connection, even if a kid has a dog, hey, you've got a dog like me? Oh, wait a minute. I said that dog. And they always have a funny story and they always have things to share. And that's important to them. To be heard is so important and validated and trusted with time in the classroom where you're supposed to be learning 28,000 things.
Yeah.
It's important.
And I would imagine the feeling heard and feeling validated part And again, for me, one of the cornerstones of really good reflective listening or offering a reflection back is not that we're fixing things. We're just simply saying, I heard you.
Yeah.
And I think for teens and for kids, that message alone at a moment in life when it often feels like there's not anyone out there who really hears me, that's got to be so powerful.
It is. It just is. I think about a time that a little guy in my class had his feelings hurt. Friend had called him a pickle. He was very upset about it. And he just sobbed. Now, your natural inclination, usually as an adult, is to say, don't worry. He didn't mean to call you a pickle.
Right.
You'll be fine. You're all right. Just get over it, But I'm like, you know what, man? Well, you're so sad.
Yeah.
Your friend called you a pickle. Do you want to talk to him about it, or do you just want to sit here and cry for a few minutes because you're really sad? It's like, I think I just need to cry for a few minutes, Miss Lally.
Right.
But take what you need. Your friends aren't around. You can take a minute. Call that embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Embrace the sucky times and process it, feel it, work through it how you need to. And when he was done, he said, okay, I think I'm done being sad now. I'm ready to go back to class. All right. You can't rush sadness. You can't rush that.
Right.
I might be on a different time frame than him, but boy, he wasn't.
Right.
He just needed to be sad for a minute.
Right.
Okay.
And I think, as you're saying, in those types of interactions, as the helping person, it really doesn't matter what our schedule is.
Oh.
Our schedule is inconsequential. It's the schedule, so to speak, right, of this person that we're trying to help, who maybe needs more time than maybe I would take or someone else would take, but doesn't matter. That's the part of being that good reflective person.
Right. And I think that so many times in life we're put in a position where someone's like, oh, I'm so worried about failing this test. You'll be fine. Don't worry. You'll pass.
Yeah.
I'm really scared of the dark. There's nothing to be scared of. It's just the dark. You know what? The dark's kind of scary sometimes.
Right.
It seems like maybe you need something to maybe help you through that. I don't really know. Can you think of anything we can do to maybe help with that scariness?
Right.
And turns out kids usually they're pretty good problem solvers. Maybe I could get a flashlight. Maybe you could. Maybe I could even help you get a flashlight if you need one.
Right.
Or you are worried about this test. Maybe you forgot to study. Maybe this information is not sticking in your head. You're worried.
Right.
Because sometimes you're just worried.
Right. I think as a helping person, and obviously right now thinking so much about my time as a school social worker, this tendency you're talking about, which is, I don't know if I would call it cultural or societal, of not allowing people to feel uncomfortable, wanting so quick, believing that part of what I do as a helper is I'm supposed to swoop in quickly, take the discomfort out of the room, right, and replace it with some artificial, propping up, oh, everything will be okay, versus allowing somebody to have the upsetness, understanding the skills that are developed from learning how to cope with upsetness and become competent with upsetness, and truly believing that kids have that skill. So us adults don't need to go in and make it all better.
And it's all about that resiliency. When you build resiliency, when you build those skills, because the world is not all peaches and cream. Bad things are going to happen to good people. Bad things are going to happen along the way, or perceived bad things. And then once you've worked through them, you realize just how strong you are, how capable you are, and how competent you are, because you're learning how to handle things. I say that a lot during my day. Well, you're really learning how to handle all this stress you have right now. You weren't really sure you could do it, but look at you. You're handling it like a boss. And, that's powerful.
It's very powerful. And resilience is, thank you for using that term, because we know, if we want to talk about evidence-based thinking, we know there are volumes written on the role of resilience in helping kids cope with life. We also know that it is really difficult to predict at birth who is going to be a resilient kid and who won't. But when you think about, now this is a more general question, when you think about all the students you've worked with over the years, what are some factors that seem to increase the tendency for a kid to negotiate adolescenthood from a perspective of being more resilient?
I think that some of the most resilient kids I've ever met are those who have really had some of the biggest challenges. Because they've had a lifetime of practice. I've worked with some kids who have just been in more difficult situations at 14 than I am at my age of, I've been teaching for 24 years. I started when I was 29. So they have seen it all. They've seen abuse. They've seen fires. They've seen people being sick. They've seen addiction. They've lived all of these horrible things. And at the end of the day, the fact that they still show up for school every day,
oh yes,
and value their education and value that connection that they have, those are the kids that never miss. They're there every day because they know they've got a good thing going.
Yeah.
And they know that it's a safe place where they can learn and they can just relax for a little while and be comfortable and safe. And those are the kids that tend to have the most resiliency, which blows my mind because they've got every reason to give up on the world.
Yes.
And many of them don't.
Right.
They're driven to get it done.
And I'll echo what you're saying as I think of students I worked with through the years, and this might be surprising for some people who don't work in education. Some of the kids who come from some of the greatest day-to-day chaos in their personal lives have the best attendance records. They don't miss school. And I would argue, I don't know if you'd agree with me, Mary, they're not there for the academics.
No.
They're there for the connection.
They are. That's 100% true. And those are sometimes the kids that give you a run for your money.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, my.
At the end of the day, I'm so grateful that they're there every day. That's been one of the toughest parts about this whole pandemic. Is just knowing that for them, something that was so important to them was taken away. And there's an underlying anger and a resentment. And, I'm hopeful that when this is hopefully past, we don't lose them.
Yeah.
So we're connecting all the time, phone calls, emails, parent contact, one-on-one Google Meets, you name it. But those are the kids who never miss. Those are the kids you look back at the end of the day and say, you know what? I'm so glad they were at school.
Yeah. They
added a little something to my day that nobody else could.
Yes. And what you said, I'm loving this because, again, I if I had a buck for every time I said this over my career, can we simply celebrate that they show up? Right, before we worry about, again, getting content into them, getting them ready for the next Regents, whatever. Just the fact that they show up every day, given what we know they go home to, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. They're getting themselves out of bed at 6 a.m. They're catching up.
Right.
Sometimes they walk in. I had a kid one day walk into school in a blizzard. He'd overslept accidentally. He walked in from his house so he could at least show up at school by 10 a.m. We start at 7. But he showed up. I'm like, dude, you're here. I showed up. It's like, yeah, I couldn't miss school.
Yeah.
I just couldn't. Those are the kids.
Yep.
They're the ones. And they're part of why it's easy to just keep going.
Yes, they are.
I love it.
Right.
I do.
Right. No, I'm with you. The other thing I found myself always thinking in working with the kinds of students we're talking about is, and I thought about this from the standpoint of, a mental health professional, that often I would find myself thinking that maybe at the end of the day, the only real goal I have for them in their interaction with me is that they walk away having had a good experience with a mental health person. Like, they're presenting with issues we know we're not going to fix, we're not going to make better. For a lot of these kids, it's not going to be until they are old enough to become independent and leave, the system they live in.
Sure.
but can I give them a good experience as a mental health person, as a teacher, as a human being, as an adult? So should there be a time in their life where they're in a better place to reach out for support, they'll be able to say, oh, had some good experiences with those folks back at school.
Right. They're the one. Yes, 100%. We work really hard to be adults that can be trusted.
Yeah.
They're safe. And I can't solve every problem, but boy, I can fill you full of resources and ideas and strategies, and we can just work together, and we have a relationship, and that's the biggest thing.
Right.
Agree 100%. Showing up is one thing, and then that relationship is the cherry on the top.
Yeah.
It's can't be beat.
Yep.
It just can't.
So in your specific helping role, you do have something that, as I said earlier, people like me never had to worry about. And that is that you do have the responsibility to attempt to get content into kids, to attempt to help them master the academic component of this. So we can talk about the relationship piece, and it's so important and all of that. But I'm curious, because that's such a unique form of helping, such, to me, an absolutely amazing skill that in the middle of the hurricane of things going on in a ninth grader's life, they're going to spend some time with you and have to learn some reading, writing, and arithmetic. So what are some of the strategies there, or the things you think about when it is time to sit down at the table and get some work done?
Oh, so many strategies all day long. It's hard to think of a ton of them off the top of my head because I think I've been doing so long that it comes naturally at this point. But I'm a big fan of especially when it comes to literature, of really acting things out, of presenting it in a multisensory way, of repeating information, not in a skill and drill kind of way, but in a, here's this concept like this, here's this concept like this, here's this concept like this, and here's a rap about it. And try to hit all the modalities and really hit the bigger concepts that they're going to need. And you said the Regents word a little while ago, so I'll just kind of say, yes, my guys are expected to take Regents exams. Mm-hmm. Yes, they're expected to do their very best. We were the one, I guess, beautiful part of the COVID was that my students did not have to sit for exams last June. That was a gift from above.
Yeah.
Because those exams send kids into a tailspin.
Yeah.
It's torturous. For the most part, it is torturous. And a lot of people are surprised that my guys have to take those exams, but they do. So it's just strategy upon strategy upon strategy all day long. That multisensory approach is the biggest one for me, though. Here it is in writing. Here it is. I'm going to say it. Here I'm going to sing it. Here I'm going to have something tangible you can work on for it. And that's really the biggest one.
Right.
And having a consistent routine, those are the things that we know just make a good classroom run. And just trying to pinpoint what kids need based upon their strengths, which is a different way of thinking about it. This kid is really strong in writing. This kid is really strong in creating artwork. Let's see what we can do.
Right.
So when you build upon strengths, you can reach a lot more kids that way.
Right. Right. So that that picture in your head of a teacher standing up in front of the classroom and lecturing up at the blackboard, what we now know, probably have known for a very long time, is for all kids, but maybe even a bit more so with the population you're talking about. You really have to go out of your way to explore all of those different learning styles, learning modalities, to find the one that fits the kid, not have the kid fit the modality.
You know it. If I were to stand up and lecture, first of all, my kids would be like, Lally, have you lost your mind? Because really, that's just not how you roll. I'm running around the room. I'm on tables. I'm all over the place. So I know that reaching kids, building to their strengths, and just doing the things that we know are based in good evidence.
Right.
I've been to some solid trainings where, there's so many things you can do in the classrooms that I think a traditional lecture setting, I would tune out I would give myself about 3 minutes.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm done.
Right.
And if you're going to read to me a PowerPoint on the wall.
Right. Done.
Yeah. Send it in an email, man. I have no time for that. So let's get it. Let's make it relate to their real life experiences. Think of a time you got really mad about something. Okay. These people were hangry. When I get hangry, I get mad. When I get mad, I want to take over the world. French Revolution. Angry people take over. They do what they need to do.
Right.
Oh.
So you used one of the other terms that I just love, and that is in our role as helpers to always be strength-based. So I'm really curious about that because, again, I know the kid you work with, and by the time, as we mentioned earlier, by the time that kid shows up in your classroom, school's not a good place. School is not a place where they have felt competent, they have done well. That report card that comes 4 times a year is not a really, the highlight of their year, those 4 days. So how do you help students who come in with some really specific learning needs see themselves more through a strength-based lens?
I think that through differentiating my instruction, it's a big thing. I'm going to probably aim a little low in the beginning so that success breeds success.
Right.
Confidence builds success. And when you can do that, first of all, I get a gauge for where a kid is at academically. But secondly, I can say, look at you. We're in high school. You did that activity. You did it really well. Let's try something a little different. And then you kind of build upon their strengths. If I know a kid's great at math, but not so great at reading, I know that problem solving for them is going to be difficult.
Right.
So we break it down into like a story. I think that building on strengths is huge. I know that some of my guys struggle with, I'm never going to ask a question of a kid that I'm 100% sure that they cannot answer.
Right. Why even?
Oh, why would I do that? Why am I going to call a kid out? They're going to be embarrassed. They're going to feel self-conscious. They're not going to know what to do. I can rig just about any situation in my classroom where a student can feel success at any given moment. And then if they aren't quite right, you know what? Wow, you took a risk. You know how hard it is to take a risk in a classroom? Look at you. I love that you gave it a rip. Does anyone else have any different ideas? So finding strengths is huge.
Yeah.
And you can find that pretty quickly with a kid because they'll tell you. They'll let you know what they're most comfortable with.
Right.
And they'll also let you know what they're not.
Yeah.
Because they'll say, hey, guys, let's do a writing assignment. Oh, yuck. And some kids will say, well, you know what? I'm actually a pretty good writer. I'm good with that.
Right.
And they say, look at you. Maybe you can help us teach the lesson. And they do. And it's fantastic. They just, they're such turkey.
Yeah, they speak the truth all the time. All the time. All right. So I'm good.
It's awful, but my favorite little warning is that we like, oh, we're going to do this. Oh, all right. Well, we can write a 28-page paper instead. And they're like, oh, no, you're actually so great. Let's do it.
So I'm going to put you on the spot in a strength-based way.
Oh, boy.
All right. So share with us a few of your strengths, talents, skills that you bring into the classroom every single day.
All right. It's like a job interview. Not really. Empathy. I am constantly thinking about how I don't know what happens in anybody's house. You don't know what happens in my house before I come to school. You don't know I don't know what kind of day you're having. But you know what? If you're having kind of a crummy one, I can be empathic on that one.
Yeah.
And respect it. I think I bring a fair amount of knowledge about a variety of kids and what they might need and a real intrinsic feel like an instinctual feel for what is driving kids. You know, you can kind of figure out what motivation might be that they need to know that things are fair. Is it that they need to know that, is it that they need to know that they can trust you? Is it that they need to know that you mean what you say?
Right.
I also think that the sense of humor is huge.
Yeah.
That. The compassion piece, you know, there's no reason to ever act jerky to a kid. Really, they're teenagers. They're figuring things out. They can be total turkeys to me, and I don't ever take that personally.
Yeah.
There is no value in taking any of that stuff personally. You'd end up in a corner, curled up in a ball.
Right.
You took stuff personally.
Right.
And I think that I try to just kind of stay as light and engaging as I can. The world can be pretty heavy.
Yeah, especially now.
It can be pretty heavy.
Right.
So trying to find the positive spin in just about anything.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty good talent. Not so much so I can put on a show for kids because they see through that, but you can find a nugget of gratitude in every day.
Yeah.
In everything you do.
You know, one of the things I'm hearing you, I'm going to use a little bit different of a word because a variety of colleagues are popping into my head right now who are those teachers that I worked with over the years who, and I had the opportunity with some of them to actually say this to them. They were the teachers that honored kids' souls. That when a student walked into their room, they got that everything you're talking about was first and foremost relationship and connection and understanding this kid. And yes, content needs to be dealt with. And thinking of one teacher that in particular who was a science teacher, taught some pretty heavy duty topics. And he was just, Bill Kent was his name, or is his name, was phenomenal at understanding that at the end of the day, I've got little human beings in my room, right? and I need to honor who they are and all of the complexity that they walk in with. And it's not just about me and getting my content, right, or my class.
You will ethically fail.
Yeah.
If you are all about content and you have no personality, you have no connection with kids.
Right.
I mean, they might learn stuff. They will. They'll be like, yeah.
Yeah.
I learned it. I guess.
Right.
I hate going to that class for 45 minutes every day because it's kind of like, I don't really even know if the teacher knows my name.
Yeah.
It's disheartening.
Yes.
And I know that the pressures are there for teachers to do that.
Oh my, no question.
Like, I have to get through this content because if I don't, they'll fail.
Right, no question.
And I get those stresses, but boy, it's those teachers who can combine both of those things masterfully that I tip my hats to.
Yeah.
I tip my hat. I don't wear multiple.
So I'm looking at the time. We're already 48 minutes into this, which is what always happens. This hour flies. So I want to make sure I ask you. You shared in the bio that you shared with me, and I shared with our listeners that about in February of 2019, cancer walked into your life. So I get the sense from how you describe that in your bio that your approach in dealing with cancer in your life isn't that much different than your approach at dealing with your students.
You got that right. Listen, cancer didn't just walk in, man. It came in like a marching band. Woo, we're here full tilt. I went in for a simple surgery and discovered it was not what we originally thought it was. It turned out to be stage 3 ovarian cancer.
Wow.
Which I'd say to all my friends and family, don't Google that one. That's not a good one. Don't Google
Don't
it.
look that one up.
Please don't Google it. You'll get panicky. So we knew what was going to happen. You know, I had a plan of action with my doctors, but the beautiful part of it was that I am surrounded at school with my crew, with my posse of people who I absolutely appreciate and love. And we knew that we were going to have to be really honest with the kids about what was going to happen.
Right.
Because I was looking at chemotherapy treatments. I was looking at a giant surgery. I was looking at time out of the classroom, which kills me. I hate that. But we all got together as a group. Once we had a game plan, all my people, we kind of stood at the front of the room and we brought all the people in my program in and said, here's what's going on. Miss Lally has cancer and she's going to look a little different. She's going to probably lose some weight. She's going to probably lose her hair. My social worker lovingly said we were going to get me a dreadlock wig to bring a little lightness. But we prepared everybody, and it's no surprise that my adults were pretty shaken. I was pretty shaken. The kids were devastated.
Yeah.
They were worried, but they felt safe in that moment to embrace that crappy emotion of just powerlessness and worry and sadness and anger and all of that wrapped in a bow. Together, we made it very clear as a family that we were going to be okay.
Yeah.
We're going to be all right because we're in it together. And we know that there are going to be days when Miss Lally feels kind of crappy, but we also know that those are the days that you're probably going to show up and bring your very best self.
Right.
And we'll all be in it together, and we'll wash our hands and we'll make sure she stays healthy. And there's something beautiful about walking that path with a group of kids who may have their own personal experiences with life and death and sickness and all that other stuff. And not for nothing, but I'm with them a lot of the day, and we've got this relationship, and they were worried. So my crew got together. They put together T-shirts that they say "Rally for Lally" on the back, and we wore them every Wednesday when I'd have chemo. And we've got our bracelets that say "Lally strong." And together we worked together. Yeah, we're gonna battle this. Yeah, we're gonna battle this thing together. It's a beautiful thing within a really crappy situation.
Yeah. One of the things that has always struck me about this kind of situation, and in this case, your willingness to be so honest and transparent with the kids about what's going on and to invite them into caring for you, how powerful that is for kids to be given permission to care for an adult and to hear adults say, "You're caring for me," is as relevant and powerful as an adult caring for me. And again, especially at a time in their life when they're often searching for anything about themselves that feels good and competent and big, that take care of me. It's okay for you to take care of me just as I take care of you.
There is a real gift in that. Yeah. I would absolutely agree with you. And, even now I continue to battle. Every 3 weeks I get this infusion and I'm taking a pill every day. And, but they check in. My guys who were there from the beginning, they check in. Miss Lally, how was your treatment this week? Are you doing okay? And I appreciate it on so many levels. And I'm beyond grateful. I just am. I don't think I could have been dealt a better hand within a really, like I said, a crummy situation. Yeah. My family support system is so strong. And my work, they're my second family. Yeah. Everywhere I've ever been, I have built those connections and it's been a solid team. Yeah. And I appreciate it so much.
But the fact that you use that word, that the family word, not everyone uses that word. They'll talk about their team at work, their colleagues at work. But when you use the word family, that says something about everything else you've talked about in the last hour of what you put into the relationships with your colleagues and with the kids that you work with, that this is a family. It's not just teacher student or, teacher colleague. It's deeper than that.
And I like to say that once you're in the family, you're in the family. You don't go anywhere. I still roll with people from my first job. And when you're in the family, you're in the family. It doesn't go away. And people who graduate, I've got families who will stay in touch and say, my kid's kind of struggling now. Do you have any ideas? And I'm like, don't be afraid to reach out. Once you're in the family, you're in the family. Like, I kind of sound like Tony Soprano when I say that. And it's not meant to be like that, but when you're in the family,
you're in
the family.
Yeah.
You can't just walk away.
So my last question to you, if there is anyone listening who has been considering going into education, because we hear some things about teacher shortages and things like that. So if someone was listening and was considering teaching, maybe even more specifically teaching special ed, words of wisdom for that person.
Go into it with an open mind, knowing that you'll probably feel like a pretty decent failure when you first start. But once you work through that, and you find yourself surrounded by people who can inspire you, there are those people around you who can just help you out. Don't be afraid. Swallow your pride. Know that you can ask for that support when you need it. Go into it with the right motivation. Not like me. I got in for the power and the glory.
Yeah, right.
And the money.
Yeah, that's it.
No, you'll know if it feels right for you.
Right.
Don't try to fool yourself into thinking that it'll all be fantastic in the start. But once you kind of get good at it, you feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
And stick with it.
Yeah.
Stick with it. Stay empathic. Stay funny. Stay light. Don't take things personally. And, just always have the kids' best interest at heart. You can't go wrong if you do that.
Beautiful. Mary Lally, thank you so much for spending this hour with us. There's no question that your students are blessed to have you. And I know you would say you're as blessed to have them.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Thank you for sharing. And thank you for sharing the journey you're on with cancer. It's, those are dark days for a lot of people. And to hear the light in which you walk that journey and what you bring to it, it's inspiring, and the best to you, definitely.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate this. So much fun to talk about this stuff. And I appreciate that you bring these helping conversations to the world. I think that you can't hear the messages enough.
No.
Be a beacon. Be a beacon of light.
That's it, right? Right? At the end of the day, that's what we do. Right.
I know.
So thank you. And to all of your colleagues, especially on any day, but especially during this moment in history, just a big thank you of appreciation to all of your colleagues for everything you're doing to help kids and families keep moving forward.
Well, thank you so much.
So I thank you all for listening today. And I hope, like me, you found our conversation with Mary inspiring and uplifting, and I hope a bit insightful, maybe for some of you who have never been in a classroom and don't have the experience of working with teenagers. I echo everything Mary shared from my experience. They are an amazing bunch of folks to work with. If you just walk in with some of the perspectives that Mary shared, an understanding that at 14, 15, kids can look a little ornery, and that doesn't mean they are. They have some unique and creative ways of letting adults know what they need, and it was always just such fulfilling work. So again, thank you for joining us, and I hope you can sit in with us again on the next episode of The Helping Conversation as we continue to shine a light on the skill and talent of those individuals like Mary Lally that invite another into that compassionate, complex, and intimate space called The Helping Conversation. Everybody have a great day.
We thank you for sitting in on our discussion today on just one unique version of The Helping Conversation. We would love to hear your thoughts on today's podcast, so we sincerely invite you to follow, rate, and most importantly, review our episodes. For more information on Keith Greer and this podcast, log on to keithgreercoaching.com. Please join us for our next episode as we continue the exploration and celebration of the practice, art, and science of the helping conversation.